$350 for $409 a month for 36 months.
Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
How bad, how extensive, how unconstitutional, how ineffective is the mass surveillance that the federal government perpetrates upon innocent Americans? There was a time when I could joke to audiences during the George W. Bush years that I wanted everyone in the audience to keep his or her mobile device on so that the president could hear everything I was about to say. You know, people usually laughed. Nobody laughs anymore. Today, even though mass suspicionless surveillance is unlawful and unconstitutional, most people recognize that it is here. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, established in 1978 to regulate and control the federal government's voracious appetite for spying on Americans, has become a facade. The feds give the impression they seek warrants. The court gives the impression it scrutinizes the national security purposes for these warrants. But in reality, your United States government engages in surveillance on everyone, everywhere, all the time in the United States. This was all brought to our consciousness 2 weeks ago when the British government kidnapped Julian Assange. It reminded me of the big picture. The feds spy on everyone and lie about it, and then they seek to arrest and prosecute somebody who exposes them for it. And the day before the Assange capture, the Attorney General of the United States testified under oath that the Trump campaign was spied upon. He didn't say surveillance, he said spied upon. And he hinted that it might not have been just the FBI. That means domestic or foreign intelligence agencies. Last year, when President Trump threatened to reveal records from the FISA court, the records that started the whole investigation of him and his campaign, he was talked out of doing so. By whom? By Israeli, American, and British intelligence. Now, why would they do that unless their fingerprints were there? I have long criticized the FISA court because it utilizes a standard for the issuance of search warrants profoundly below the bottom line set forth in the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. The Constitution says, everybody knows this, no search warrants without probable cause of crime. FISA says search warrants can be issued upon probable cause of communicating with a foreign person. Call your cousin or your bookseller or your favorite hotel in Europe. Call your favorite foreign friend in the United States. And the feds have the license to monitor all your communications. Of course, since they monitor everything anyway, why should they even bother going to the FISA court? For appearance sake, the Constitution be damned. And whether or not this mass surveillance even keeps us safe be damned. The DOJ Inspector General is finishing up on the investigation into the potential FISA abuses right now. But is there any hope of reining in the surveillance state? Joining me now to discuss this, former NSA Technical Director and my good friend Bill Binney. Bill, welcome to Kennedy. Senator Mike Lee was here. Thank you. Senator Mike Lee, who shares many of your and my views of the pervasiveness of surveillance, was here a few minutes ago, and I asked him if most members of Congress were aware that the NSA spies on Congress. Without telling you what he said as an answer, I'm going to put that as a question to you. Does the NSA spy on Congress and on the federal courts?
The answer is yes. I mean, we even had an NSA whistleblower, Russ Tice, who said he read some of the communications of the members of Congress and members of the FISA court and members of the federal judges, plus the Supreme Court members and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So, yeah, they do spy on everybody.
Justice Scalia, he asked me not to tell this, but of course he's no longer with us, so I don't feel bound by my agreement. Sorry, Nino, look it up. Justice Scalia told me he was convinced that the court was being spied upon. In fact, he said something that I think you probably agree with. The spying is so pervasive that the spies are spying upon themselves. Does the NSA spy on the CIA, Bill?
Yeah, yes, and vice versa. They really want to know what each other is doing and what each other, what kind of information each other has, and so that they can request it and see if they get it. You know, so It's a matter of testing whether or not they're being honest with each other. And in fact, they lie to each other all the time.
Am I right in suggesting, as I did in the rather long introduction to your segment, that the FISA court is just a facade, that the NSA uses it to give itself some legal legitimacy, but in fact it does all the spying all the time? And if I'm right, does the FISA court itself, do the judges on that court know that they're being duped?
Actually, I would say yes, they know that, because they've caught the FBI lying to them for warrants. They've caught the NSA violating their instructions. They also had Judge Reggie Walton back in 2013, the senior judge on that court, said, at that time, he said, after the Snowden material came out, and they had that general warrant issued to Verizon, they said, well, we have very limited capacity to really validate what the intelligence agencies are telling us. So basically, they're just rubber stamping the requests.
Last question. Does all of this surveillance keep us safer?
Absolutely not. It makes the analysts dysfunctional. They can't get through the data. They can't see a threat coming. So the threats occur, and they pick up the pieces afterward. It's like they become forensics. They're now police agencies.
Bill Binney, thanks very much. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Judge.
Only 5 vice presidents have gone on to be elected president.